Hello everyone, and welcome back to my new series, Making the Chase, where I take each season before the chase was implemented and tell the story of the season as if NASCAR had the chase format in that particular year. In the previous episode, we saw Richard Petty absolutely dominate. He won nearly half the races and clinched the championship a week early. But 1976 is widely known for the start of Cale Yarborough's three-peat. Will Cale Yarborough keep his streak intact, or will he be foiled by someone else? Let's find out as we look at the 1976 season with the chase. Before we get into the chase, we have to talk about the guys on the outside looking in. 8 drivers were already locked into the chase, so that meant that there were 2 spots up for grabs heading into the cutoff race at Michigan. David Pearson and Frank Warren were the holders of those last 2 positions. Both drivers had a somewhat comfortable cushion over J.D. McDuffie, who was only out by 46 points. There were 3 other drivers within striking distance of the cutoff, and these drivers included Cecil Gordon, James Hilton, and Darrell Waltrip. In the cutoff race at Michigan, David Pearson won the race to clinch his spot in the chase, while Waltrip, Hilton, and Gordon all finished outside the top 20, eliminating them from the chase field. So this left J.D. McDuffie and Frank Warren. McDuffie had a really solid day, finishing the race in 8th and really just did what he needed to do, while Warren finished the race a horrid 23rd, and this was enough for McDuffie to get into the chase by just 2 points over Warren. And with this, the chase field for 1976 was set. In the opening race of the chase at Bristol, the 1 seed Cale Yarborough would dominate, leading 373 of the 400 laps en route to a win and an early chase lead. But in the next race at Darlington, Yarborough's momentum would come to an abrupt end with a 23rd place finish, and this poor result would end up giving Richard Petty the point lead over Benny Parsons by 29 points. But at Richmond, Yarborough would bounce back and win the race, to put himself right back up there with Petty, who finished the race in 3rd. In the 4th race at the Dover Downs, Yarborough once again took a commanding win, but Richard Petty would be right behind him in 2nd, and the gap was shrunk to 26 points. In the next race at Martinsville, Cale Yarborough once again won the race, while Petty finished 4th, and the gap between them was now just 1 point. And halfway through the chase, it looked like we were going to have a barn burner of a championship battle. At North Wilkesboro, Yarborough won his 4th consecutive race to make it 5 wins in the first 6 races of the chase, and this also propelled him into the lead by just 19 points over Richard Petty. At Charlotte, Yarborough didn't win, but ended up finishing 2nd while Petty finished 8th. And Yarborough now had a 47-point lead over Petty. At Rockingham, Petty would stop the bleeding with a win, while Yarborough finished the race in 5th, and the gap was brought back down to 17 points with 2 races to go. But at the penultimate race of the season in Atlanta, Richard Petty would have an oil pressure issue that forced him out of the race and to a 28th place finish, while Yarborough finished 4th, and the gap was now a whopping 103 points heading into the finale. All Cale Yarborough had to do was finish the race in 25th to clinch the title. In the finale at Ontario, Richard Petty had an engine failure, and that resulted in him finishing the race in 27th, and this handed the 1976 championship to Cale Yarborough. In 1977, the bubble battle would be pretty tame. There were 8 drivers already locked into the chase, with 2 spots still being in play. Richard Childress would be in 9th, 150 points above the cutoff, and really just needed an okay day at Michigan for a chase spot. The 10th driver would be James Hilton, who was 101 points above J.D. McDuffie and 102 points above Skip Manning. And really all Hilton needed was a 24th place at Michigan. And at Michigan, Hilton finished the race 16th and set the chase field for 1977. To kick off the 1977 chase, Cale Yarborough would start it much like he did the previous year with a win in the chase opener at Bristol, and left with a 25-point lead over Darrell Waltrip. In the 2nd race at Darlington, Yarborough had yet another solid day, finishing in 5th, but the gap to Waltrip remained the same due to Waltrip leading the most laps that day. At race 3 in Richmond, Yarborough had another really good day, finishing in 4th while Waltrip finished 7th, and leaving this race, it was clear that 4 drivers had separated themselves from the rest. Cale Yarborough, Darrell Waltrip, Richard Petty, and Benny Parsons. In the next race at Dover, Richard Petty would have an engine failure that dropped him out of the fight. Meanwhile, the other 3 drivers would all have solid days, with Parsons winning the race, moving up to 3rd. Yarborough finished third and was now 59 points ahead of Waltrip, who finished fifth. At Martinsville, Yarborough would assert his dominance, winning the race, while Parsons finished second and moved into second, 82 points behind Cale. And Waltrip finished the race in 10th and was now 105 points back in third. At North Wilkesboro, Waltrip had a bounce-back week, winning the race, but Yarborough finished right behind him and Waltrip only got the gap down to 100 points. Meanwhile, Benny Parsons finished 5th and was now 97 points back in second. At Charlotte, Parsons won the race and shrunk the gap to Cale and was now 87 points back, while Darrell Waltrip finished 5th and was now 115 points behind Yarborough. At Rockingham, Yarborough finished 4th while Parsons finished 7th, and Parsons was now 106 points off of Cale, while Darrell Waltrip finished the race 3rd and slightly shrunk the gap to 110 points. At the penultimate race of the season in Atlanta, Darrell Waltrip would win the race while Yarborough finished 5th, and Waltrip would actually slide into second, just 90 points back, while Parsons finished 3rd and was 101 points back. Heading into the finale, all Yarborough had to do was finish the race 20th, and in the finale at Ontario, Cale Yarborough made a statement by finishing ahead of the other two contenders in 3rd, and Cale Yarborough clinched his 2nd consecutive championship. For the 2nd year in a row, the bubble battle was pretty tame. 9 spots were already locked up heading into the cutoff race at Michigan. The bubble battle would be between Dick Brooks and DK Ulrich, who were separated by 106 points with Brooks on top. All Brooks really needed to do was finish 27th at Michigan. And well, Brooks brought home a 6th place finish, and with that, the chase field for 1978 was set. In the chase opener at Bristol, Cale Yarborough won the opener for the 3rd consecutive season and had a 20-point advantage over Benny Parsons. In the 2nd race at Darlington, Cale Yarborough would separate himself as the early favorite for the 3rd year in a row with a 2nd straight win, and Cale was now 45 points ahead of 2nd place Darrell Waltrip. In the 3rd race at Richmond, Yarborough finished 4th while Waltrip won the race, and the gap was now 25 points with Yarborough on top. In race 4 at the Dover Downs, Yarborough finished the race 2nd, while Waltrip finished 5th, and the gap grew slightly to 40 points. In the 5th race at Martinsville, Yarborough would assert himself as the favorite with a 50-point gap over Darrell Waltrip. At North Wilkesboro, Yarborough would go back-to-back and win, while Waltrip finished 2nd, and the gap was now 55 points. But at Charlotte, Yarborough would have a horrible day, finishing 22nd, while Waltrip came home 2nd, and Darrell Waltrip took the lead from Yarborough, and the two were separated by just 23 points. At Rockingham, Yarborough bounced back with a win while Waltrip finished 3rd, and the gap was just 8 points with Waltrip on top. Heading into the penultimate race of the season at Atlanta, the goal was simply to beat the other and set yourself up for the finale. But Darrell Waltrip wrecked out late and finished the race 28th while Yarborough finished 8th, and Yarborough was now 60 points above Waltrip, and all he had to do at Ontario was finish the race 11th. And at the finale, Yarborough finished 2nd while Waltrip finished 5th, and Cale Yarborough would become the first driver to ever win 3 consecutive championships. So either way, Cale Yarborough's iconic streak stays intact. Yarborough's stats in the chase over the past 3 years are simply insane. An average finish of 6.2, 3.0, and 4.3. Those numbers are simply insane. And how he won the championships in each year is just remarkable. In 1976, he opened the chase with 5 wins in 6 races, and just cruised to the championship after that. In 77 and 78, he had blazing consistency, with an average finish of 3.6 across the 2 seasons. Yarborough's stats in the 3 chases goes as follows: 15 wins, 24 top 5s, 26 top 10s, and an astonishing 4.5 average finish. Yarborough was the 70s equivalent of Jimmy Johnson. Simply put, Cale Yarborough was just simply the best driver for these 3 seasons, and he was rewarded with 3 consecutive championships. Well, that's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. Thank you to my channel members, and I will see you next week for another video. Y'all have a good one.